Welcome everyone to Train Tuesday. I am your host, Jim Wiggin with Athearn. So glad you have found us. If you have found us and you like the content that you're seeing, please do us a favor, like and subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and post comments to the video. We try to answer as many as we can. And once you become a subscriber, hit the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video like this drops into the channel. Want to thank all of our recent subscribers who've come on board, and we want to offer you, if you're not a subscriber, to go ahead and take care of that. That way you know exactly what's going on at Athearn. This time we're going to be talking about the EMD SDP45. Now this is an Athearn Genesis model that we've offered in the past. We want to do another run, and this time we've got some great prototypes to choose from, as well as a few legendary liveries. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with some model train goodness in the Athearn Genesis SDP45. Back in the 1960s, railroads were looking to replace aging EMD E-units and Alco PAs for passenger service. EMD responded by adding a steam generator compartment to the long hood end of their SD45. This required a longer frame and resulted in the creation of the SDP for passenger 45 locomotive. Three railroads originally purchased SDP 45s: Southern Pacific, Great Northern, and Erie, Lackawanna. Over the decades, the SDP 45s were then acquired by other railroads through mergers, leasing companies, and of course, rebuild programs, some of which we'll be talking about on this episode. Now, the locomotive that you see on your screen here is Conrail 6670. This is a former Erie Lackawanna SDP 45. And the item number for this is ATHG 63610. Again, ATHG 63610. It's been a while since we've offered this locomotive, so you may have a hard time finding it. If you are unable to find it, well, hopefully we'll do another run of Conrails in the future. But let's talk about ones that you can pre-order right now. You have until Friday, September 27th to place those pre-orders with your Athearn dealer. We're going to start with a selection from Southern Pacific, and this is a 1987 era offering. Now, SP bought 10 SDP 45s back in 1967, and this was to replace their aging PA and E units on their long-distance passenger trains. On the demise of SP's long-distance passenger trains, the SDP 45s went into Peninsula Commute Pool, replacing the venerable FM Trainmasters. The SDP 45s also worked freight service on the weekends, as was normal for most commute locos. When Caltran took over the commute service, the SDP 45s went into freight pool. Two units, 3201 and 3207, kept their steam generators active for business car specials. The others had theirs deactivated, more or less creating two classes, freight and passenger versions of the SDP 45s. As they never had the dual fuel water tanks modified, they would have had short legs. Their last years were working local haulers around the LA basin. Now, the following information that I've given you is credited to Richard A. Percy and his website, sprailfan.net. You want to check that out. It's sp.railfan.net. Now, we're offering three versions here, two in the fresh 1987 repaint, as well as a prime for grime. Now, 3201 and 3207, that you see at the top and bottom of your screens, represent the fresh red and gray repaints from 1987. They both have high-low brake cylinders. These were reserved for business train service and special company events. Meanwhile, 3203, seen there in the middle, has faded colors, high brake cylinders, removed cab icicle breakers, and the class lights have been painted over. This is part of our prime for grime. Spotting features that are specific for these three units. These are going to have forward gyro lights. Now, if you get the Tsunami 2 equipped versions, that's a lighting feature that you'll have. You'll also have the forward emergency light, again, an effect in DCC with the Tsunami 2 decoders. modified L window cabs, Nathan P3 horns, and of course, roof-mounted icicle breakers. We're going to move over to Burlington Northern next and a sea of Cascade Green. Now, after the formation of the Burlington Northern, many locomotives were repainted into their then new corporate colors of Cascade Green and Black. Originally purchased in 1967 for passenger service, Great Northern's 8 Big Sky Blue EMD SDP45s found their way into general freight pool after Amtrak was formed in 1971. Receiving their final Burlington Northern numbers in 1974, the SDP45s were eventually retired in the mid-1980s and sold off for scrap. We're offering 3 road numbers of the Burlington Northern SDP45s, including 6592, 6593, and 6597. Now, these all have road number specific details. So quickly, 6592 that you see at the top of your screen is former Great Northern number 326. It features high brake cylinders, cab-mounted Milwaukee-style electronic bell. Next is 6593, again a former Great Northern unit number 327, and it too will have high brake cylinders and a cab-mounted Milwaukee-style electronic bell. Then finally we have 6597. This has high-low brake cylinders and rear end numbers. Other features specific for the Burlington Northern Group is the Stratolite beacon. Now again, this is an effect that takes place with the Tsunami 2 only versions. You're also going to have the steam generator details, medium front plow, and just like we talked about, road number specific details. Now let's go back a few years and see what those locomotives look like in Big Sky Blue. Now we're going back to 1967. This is Great Northern's Big Sky Blue. Great Northern purchased 8 of the SDP45s from EMD in 1967 to help replace their tired F units. These were delivered in their Big Sky Blue scheme, and they were used in passenger service on such trains as the Empire Builder until the formation of Amtrak in 1971. They would eventually be repainted into Burlington Northern colors after the merger of 1970 and used in general freight pool until their retirement in the mid-1980s. These are what I like to call factory fresh units, so these are as they appeared in 1967 direct from EMD. We have road numbers 329, 331, and 332. Features that are specific for the Great Northern units is the flashing beacon, again a Tsunami 2 DCC effect, steam generator details, and a medium front plow. Now let's talk about where some of these guys ended up. We're going to kind of go backwards and forwards in history a little bit, so let's talk about each one of these locomotives in detail. The first one I'm going to show you is a 1998 era Wisconsin Central. Now, Wisconsin Central 6634 was formerly Morrison Knudsen 9511, and it was built originally as Erie Lackawanna 3656. Its designation is an ST45M. It featured the long frame of the STP45, but it did not have a steam generator. The extra space was used rather for a 5,000-gallon fuel tank so that the units could run greater distances before refueling. On the Wisconsin Central 6634 came wearing its coat of Helm dark blue, but this was exchanged for the attractive Wisconsin Central maroon and gold scheme, courtesy of the Horicon Wisconsin shops back in 1998. The unit was allegedly a bit of a shop queen, but was popular as a target for area rail fans due to its uniqueness. When the Wisconsin Central was sold to Canadian National in 2001, many locomotives were subsequently auctioned off, including number 6634. She was then sold to Rail World on 7/11 of 02 for just a little over $17,000 with a bad order turbo, and was subsequently cut up for scrap, which signed the end and the final chapter of her storied 32-year career. Interesting locomotive. Again, this is a former Erie Lackawanna unit. It is going to feature all-weather window, Wisconsin Central specific body details on the rear, removed class lights, updated colors from the previous release, 5,000-gallon fuel tank, and operating front and rear ditch lights. Now, looking at the middle of the screen, we see the Morrison Knudsen SD45M before it became Wisconsin Central. This is 1990s era. 9511 was not photographed too much during its existence, but the unit was built as Erie Lackawanna 3656 before becoming Conrail 6687 and later VMV 6687. Morrison Knudsen then acquired the unit, gave it a coat of their standard dark blue paint, albeit with white stripes instead of the more common gold. And this uncommon variation was also applied to a few other Morrison Knudsen SD45s. Interestingly, the unit did not acquire ditch lights or lose its class lights while under Morrison Knudsen's ownership. Features specific for this unit are going to be a Leslie RS3L low-profile horn, mixed dynamic brake and radiator fan heights per prototype, EMD standard low snowplow, class lights, and 5,000-gallon fuel tank. And then finally, at the bottom of your screen, and the most modern of our picks for this month, is the Web Asset Management ST40M-2. That's what their designation for this locomotive is. In 1993, SP contracted with Morrison Knudsen to supply 133 ST40M-2s. These units were rebuilt with a variety of core units, 6 of which were former Erie Lackawanna SD45Ms. Web Asset Management 4214 was formerly SP 8693 and came to Web in the late 2010s. The unit currently calls Texas home and is one of the few, if not only, SDP45 type car bodies still running as of 2024. It's kind of a cool full circle on these locomotives. Now, features that are specific for the Web Asset Management locomotive include removed class lights, operating front ditch lights, Nathan K3 LA horn on bracket mounted on the long hood, 2 Sinclair antennas, and RV-style air conditioners. Next, we have a few of our offerings for the legendary liveries, and I know some folks love these, some people hate these, but we still offer them just the same because they do continue to sell extremely well for us. So in November of 1981, Southern Pacific released a one-of-a-kind rebuilt SD45, number 7399, classified as SD44R. It was fitted with a 16-cylinder prime mover and was painted in an attractive adaptation of the road's famous daylight scheme. While no other SD44Rs were completed, the unit lasted several years with its special paint. We think that the 2 SDP45s, which kept their steam generators into the 1980s, would look great in the scheme, as well as heading up an OCS or Shippers special. We've got 2 road numbers here provided for you to add should you wish to, 3201 and 3207. Of course, they will have SP spotting features, including large snow plows, multiple cab vents, cab with modified L window, steam generators, SP light package on the front, and bell mounted on the cab roof. And of course, we know how popular demonstrator units are. So in the legendary liveries, we are going to offer a pair of these. Now, Electromotive Division was well known for its demonstrator locomotives. These specially painted units were owned by the builder and often toured around the United States railroad system to demonstrate the capabilities of a new locomotive model. Decorated to match the contemporary SD45 demonstrator scheme, these SDP45s would look right at home, showing off their dual service capabilities on whichever railroad you model. 2 road numbers are being offered here, 4355 as well as 4356, and they're going to have EMD features such as the L window cab, the Leslie RS 4L low profile horn, steam generator, and low brake trucks. Union Pacific was well known for its famous passenger trains with such names as the Portland Rose, Overland Limited, and of course the City of Los Angeles. UP was maintaining passenger service and buying new passenger power much later than most other roads. As the railroad consolidated its trains to save on operating costs, consist sizes swelled, often requiring 4, even 5 unit lash-ups of E-units to pull them. It is conceivable that the Union Pacific could have ordered SDP-45 locomotives to reduce the units needed to pull a train versus the many E-units. Such units could have been easily adapted for freight service as the need arose. The road was already familiar with the EMD SD45, having ordered 50 units in 1968. These SDP 45s, decked out with their dependable transportation slogans, would look great pulling the city of everywhere or hotshot intermodal train. Two road numbers are being offered in this legendary liveries paint scheme of 1450 and 1457. The features of these locomotives and details of these locomotives include icicle breakers, winterization hatches, small EMD style snowplow, steam generator, high brake cylinders, UP style Leslie RS3L horn between the radiator fans, and the Western Coolant beacon, and that is a Tsunami 2 DCC uh, lighting effect. Now, earlier we talked about Burlington Northern. What about Burlington Northern Santa Fe? Well, Burlington Northern, of course, owned 8 SDP 45s, but all of them were scrapped by the 1980s. What if they had lasted until the BNSF merger? Here's our take. The attractive Heritage 1 scheme fits them very well. The units have had their steam generators removed and they've been upgraded internally to Dash 2 standards in this version of history. Two road numbers offered here, 6423 and 6428. And they will have such features as hinged battery box doors, K3 LA horn on bracket, removed class lights, no steam generator, small EMD style snowplow, and high brake trucks. Now heading on over to the East Coast, we've got another famous passenger railroad and freight railroad, New York Central. New York Central has its roots going as far back as 1853. In their heyday of the 1940s, they were known for their fast speed and streamlined passenger equipment. Famous luxury trains, such as the 20th Century Limited, gave passengers first class treatment, running from New York City to Chicago. Its last official run was 1967, or maybe it could have continued. In an alternate era where ridership was on an upswing, it's possible to imagine New York Central ordering newer motive power for their namesake passenger trains. Wanting to continue their famous service, New York Central ordered 10 SDP 45s from EMD to Great Northern specifications. Painted in their cigar band scheme of the early 1960s, these SDP 45s would look great pulling streamlined passenger trains on your layout. Two road numbers are being offered here, 4150 as well as 4153. They will feature steam generator details as well as MU catch with footboards. Last but not least, and this one is not a legendary livery, this is an actual based on the prototype locomotive. This is Helm Leasing. Helm Leasing is categorizing this as an SD45M, and this is represented by this late 1990s rather paint scheme. Helm Financial Corporation, of course, is one of the largest leasing outfits that provides locomotives and freight cars for the railroad industry. With a current fleet of over 850 locomotives, railroads can choose long-term and/or short-term leases depending on their needs. Their equipment can be seen all over North America, providing power where it's needed. Now, this locomotive is going to feature removed class lights. It is a former Erie Lackawanna body with short fans, and front ditch lights and small front EMD plow. Now let's go back to our earlier example and talk about some of the details that you're going to find on Athearn Genesis SDP45. Of course, they're going to have flexible rubber train line hoses, flexible rubber MU hoses, lift rings, wire grab irons, sander lines, coupler cut levers, full cab interior, walkway tread, and windshield wipers. Two versions are available. They will have the included Tsunami 2 sound decoder, or you can get the DCC ready version, which features a quick plug and play technology with 21 pin NEM connector. Fine scale silicone handrails for a scale appearance, and of course a detailed fuel tank with fuel fillers, fuel gauges, and breather pipes. There's a lot more details. You can check out those details by selecting the link in the video description below. Well, that's all I've got for you on this episode of Train Tuesdays. The SDP45s can be ordered through your Athearn dealer by Friday, September 27th. You're going to want to get those orders in because, again, we are getting tighter on our ordering with the factory. With that said, if you haven't done so already, please do us a favor and subscribe to our email newsletter. It's now weekly, and we try to give you the most current news and up to date on when models are coming, when they're hoping to arrive, and when they're here. So do yourself a favor, go to athearn.com, and if you haven't done so far, sign up for the Athearn newsletter. And once again, thank you for joining me on Train Tuesday. I want everyone out there to be happy, be healthy, be safe, do some good modeling, and above all, high greens. Take care, everyone.